Okay, wonderful. Well, it's 6 p.m. East Coast on the dot, but I'm still going to give it another minute or two for people to join. And while we're waiting or while you're just joining the line, I would love for everyone to drop in the chat, number one, your LinkedIn, so we can each connect with each other. And also let me know where you're calling in from. I'm based in Richmond, Virginia, so on the East Coast. If there's any Virginia people, let me know. Love to meet you. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Really excited to have you all here for this workshop on freelance and fractional pathways into climate. People are just joining. We'll go ahead and get started in a second, but please drop your LinkedIn and where you're calling in from in the chat. Oh, Corey, you grew up in Seville as in Charlottesville or Centerville?
Charlottesville.
Charlottesville. Okay, cool. Nice. I'm not too far from there.
Yeah, that's why I mention it.
Yeah, that's cool. Awesome. We have someone in Boulder. My family's in also in Colorado, so hello to Colorado. Cool. We have some New York City folks, California, Oakland, San Jose, SF represent. Love to see it. New Jersey. Very cool. Jacksonville, Florida, Barcelona. Thank you for joining. It must be quite late for you. I appreciate you joining this. Very cool. All right. Well, we've got about 25 people on the line, and I want to make sure we can get through as much as possible today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And again, if anybody needs to drop or anything, this whole session will be recorded, and I'll be sending out the recording afterwards, along with slides, any resources shared, or anything. So if anything comes up and you can't stay the whole time, don't worry. You'll get all the information that we share during the session today. So let me drop some more helpful links in the chat. If anybody likes to follow along with the slides, you should be able to access everything here. Okay, let me drop them in the chat. Great. So the slides are in the chat if you want to follow along, as well as my LinkedIn and a few other resources as well. So let me go ahead and share my slides and we can get started. So, thank you everyone for joining me this Wednesday evening. If you are here for the workshop we're going to talk about pathways into climate, freelance consulting and fractional. If you're here for that, you're in the right place. And my name is Radhika. I'll be leading the workshop for today. And before I jump into slides and everything, I want to introduce my colleague Stacy, who helped to organize this event. This event would not have been possible without Stacy inviting me to do this. So, Stacy, the floor is yours. I just want to say thank you again for having me. And feel free to introduce yourself and the Berkeley group as well.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for doing this. I'm really excited. Hi, everybody. My name is Stacy King. I'm based out of Oakland, California, and I'm a member of the Sustainability Alumni Board at Berkeley Haas. And so I'm a Berkeley Haas MBA, graduated in 2020. And the Sustainability Alumni Board is part of the broader Haas Alumni Network. And we're working to position Berkeley as a leader in sustainability while continuing to build bridges between students and alumni, as well as across industries, disciplines, and communities. And so we really like to create spaces like this where people can connect, exchange ideas, think about how they want to contribute to sustainability and how sustainability fits into their professional goals. And so I'm on the board. I'm the VP of Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Partnerships. And outside of Haas, I work in climate tech, venture, and strategy. And I work with organizations and founders to help them turn their bold ideas into reality through investments, partnerships, programs, and scaling. So, Radhika is actually my career coach, and so that's how we know each other. And she's been excellent. And I actually got an invitation to interview for a job that Radhika sent to me. So, It's
Yes,
great.
I'd
Yeah.
love to see it. Love to hear
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Congrats, Stacey. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, it's been great working with Radhika. Definitely have been able to figure out how to position myself as a fractional and freelance consultant. She's been super helpful with helping me build out my portfolio, make connections, refine my resume. And so I thought this would just be a really good way to bring her into the Berkeley Haas community, but also extend this workshop to other folks. I know a lot of people are looking for jobs. It's a pretty strange time. And so this is a really like creative and interesting way to rethink your professional career. And I think that this will kind of be the direction of work going forward. And so I'm really excited to just like try to help share these tools with other folks. And so please reach out to connect if you're in the Bay Area and you want to do anything with the Sustainability Alumni Board. We have happy hours. We have programming like this. We're always open to collaborating with folks. So yes, please reach out. And then with that, I'll turn it back over to Radhika. Thank you again for being here. I hope everybody enjoys. Yeah, and please connect on LinkedIn.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stacey. It means so much to hear you say that and for to be able to do this workshop together. So thank you so much again.
Sure.
And again, if you're just joining, please drop your LinkedIn in the chat. I really want to make sure that you all can connect with each other as much as you can connect with Stacey and I as well. So please drop your LinkedIn in the chat. Make sure to click through, connect with each other. This is just one session, but I want us to all stay connected after this too. Also, if you're joining, I'll drop the link to the slides in the chat again as well, and you'll also get that emailed out afterwards too. So a little bit about me. I'm seeing some familiar faces here. I love to see. I have a few clients in the room, and also some new faces as well. So I'll just introduce myself briefly. My name's Radhika. I'm a climate career coach specializing in helping people navigate the career shift into climate and sustainability. I run my own business. It's called Sathe Studio. Sathe is a word in Gujarati which means together. I really believe that building a better world takes all of us working together. So that's why I named that as my career coaching agency. In addition to career coaching, I also take on fractional contracts in addition to coaching. So, right now, I'm actually working as a recruiter part time for a hydrogen startup in Mountain View as well. So, a lot of what I have to share today, I can always we can talk all day about job search strategy, full time, how to fix up your resume, how to move forward. But I really wanted to spend time today talking more about what the landscape looks like from the fractional, freelance, and consulting perspective, especially as we're witnessing changes in the full-time job market. Especially, I'm not going to be shy to say we know it's difficult right now. I'm sure many of you are experiencing it yourself. So I really want to take this time during this workshop to talk about the realities of the job market, but also how to still see results and carve out new pathways for yourself. So I've been working with people over the last 3 years. I've worked with over 500 people on this navigating the job search process. And before that, I worked in government for 8 years in DC, across the Biden, Trump, and even Obama administration as well. And I'm currently based in Richmond, Virginia. I would say if anyone's interested in staying in touch, here's a QR code to my newsletter. I can drop the link to that in the chat as well. I share a lot of resources on a weekly basis around fractional work, but also full time, where to job search, things like that. So I'll drop that in the chat. And before I dive into all the slides, I really wanted to open the floor to you all to understand what brought you here. Were there any is there anything that's kind of top of mind for you as you think about freelance and fractional work? Is there something that kind of called you to register for this event today? And feel free to unmute. This is a meeting, not a webinar, so you can just kind of unmute and share, or you can drop your thoughts in the chat. So yeah, let me know what's a reason that you came to this workshop or what brought you here today. Thomas, go ahead. I think I see
Oh,
you unmuted.
okay, I have my non-digital hand up. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I recently moved to the States, actually. I'm originally from Germany. I have worked a lot in international development so far. I moved to the States at the wrong time, I think, to do international development. So I try to, start my consulting career here with like contacts that I had from World Bank and other institutions. I'm based in DC, but it's not really picking up that as much as I wanted to. And I'm thinking of, okay, where else can I go? So coming from this internationalist perspective, I have this idea, okay, there must be so many jobs out there on the national level that could be interesting, and I just don't really know how to find them, and then also position myself as someone who is not just um, yeah capable of working in the international development field.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Corinne, go ahead.
Hi everyone, this is Karen. And for me, I'll keep this short. I recently finished or completed an internship. It's a climate nonprofit that's based in DC, and I did it remotely, but I've been actively job searching for about a year now, and I'm trying to keep my eyes open and opportunities open for different things that are out there. So that's what brought me here.
Kanan, go ahead.
Hi everyone, this is Kanan. For me, I was until recently working for a nonprofit based in DC and working in the climate sector. I had already been thinking about trying to move into a consulting role. This past few months helped accelerate that thinking process. So I've just transitioned from a full-time role to trying the consulting model and would love to learn more about it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Justin, go ahead.
Hi, Radhika. I was at one of your presentations in the recent Terra cohort and really found that useful. Thank you so much for sharing all that stuff. Um, I founded my own LLC about a year ago and have always kind of been mission focused on working for climate companies. But the one company that I have had a contract with so far is not a climate company, but it does pay the bills in the meantime. And I think the one thing that I've been struggling with is figuring out how to do that more sustainably, because right now I feel like I am just always on call for that client instead of treating it almost more like a retainer where I can work on that stuff in my own hours. Like I'm in their Slack channel, have an email address set up with them and everything else, and so it just feels like it is all the time.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm also seeing some really awesome answers in the chat as well. Other folks are pivoting into climate sustainability, so just trying to figure out where they fit. Pivoting from banking or financial or from creativity or creative fields. Um, Also exploring pathways to kind of independent, working with climate startups. And also, I think this is a very common story for folks. Maybe folks have experienced a layoff, or you've been part of the recent reduction in force in the federal government as well. So no matter, what situation you're in or kind of what brought you here, I just want to say thank you. Thank you, all of you, for spending 90 minutes with me on a Wednesday to kind of ideate and think through how you can move forward in the paths that you desire and your goals. I'm always honored that people want to spend time with me working on this. So thank you so much for coming. And again, if you haven't or if you missed it, feel free to drop your LinkedIn in the chat so we can stay connected. And Corey, thank you for making that compiled list of all the people as well. I'll be sure to send that out afterwards as well. So yeah, it looks like there's been a few, reading the chat again, it looks like there's been a few folks that have experienced layoffs. And I think, really what I want to talk about today is how exploring this path around freelance and fractional work can really be a pathway to ensuring resilience in your job search and in your career. I think we oftentimes think about fractional and freelance is like a nice to have, or like, oh, when I get to this point in my career, I'll do it then. But I think work is changing, right? The ways that we work, the ways that we organizations are being able to build products and things like that, all of that is changing. So we're going to talk more about that today. Little overview of what we're going to go over. I want to talk a little bit about pathways into climate, that overview of what the landscape looks like right now. I'll then kind of illustrate a little bit more about what it actually looks like to find opportunities. I have like 3 success stories I'll share to kind of energize folks to let you know that this is fully possible and a real pathway that you can have for yourself. And then I actually want to spend maybe 30 to 45 minutes on an ideation session. I have a worksheet in here that everyone will get that is around how do you actually get started on the consulting path? How do you define your offers? How do you figure out who your first clients are? Things like that. So I'll spend about half the time on slides and then half the time in the working session. And if anybody has questions, I'm monitoring the chat as we go. So feel free to type in the chat. And I can also, we'll have time for Q&A as well. Great. Okay. So let's start with pathways into climate. Stacy mentioned this at the beginning, and I also kind of firmly believe this with all the news that we're seeing every day around AI and the layoffs and all the things that are happening all the time. I really think the future of work is changing, and I think there's kind of this reality of like, we don't even know what full-time work looks like maybe 5 years from now. I would even venture to say maybe we don't know what it looks like next year even. And so I really think that we all as job seekers, as creatives, as people that care about making a difference in this world, I think that there's a lot of power in tackling this uncertain time with creativity. And that's really what I want to help everyone do today. I also think that oftentimes when I'm working with job seekers that want to work in climate, the first thing I hear is, okay, like I want to get a full-time job in climate because that's the only way, or, I want to work in climate, so I have to get a full-time job. And that's a myth, in my opinion. I think that there are lots of pathways to climate, and a full-time job is not the only thing that can get you there. So I oftentimes see, again, I've worked with over 500 people. I partner with Terra.do, work on climate. I've worked with few different organizations and universities in this space. And I think there's also some myths that we're told about how our career has to be or how to find success after you study a certain program or you go through a certification. So this is another thing I kind of see pretty often. Maybe you got a degree in sustainability. That means, your next pathway is an internship or a fellowship, and then you'll land a full-time role. Or maybe a lot of people are pivoting, right? If you have years of experience in one industry and then you decide to upskill or start volunteering or consulting, and then you land a full-time role in climate. So all of these paths are possible, but what I wanted to share is that it doesn't always have to be so linear. Oftentimes, it can actually look like this. It looks a little crazy, a little messy, but that's okay. I think that's the beautiful part of a lot of our, the creativity that there is in building your own career. So this is just a demonstration of all of these things are still possible. All of these are still options to you, but it doesn't have to be a linear or a straight line if you don't want it to be. Or if that's not how it works out, that's also okay. So the blue path is actually mine. I had years of experience, 8 years of experience in government, technology, and social impact. I did the Terra.do program to upskill and kind of learn more about the climate landscape. I had done some work with EPA and DOE, so that's kind of my initial spark of climate work. I did the Terra program, and then I actually did the whole thing. I applied for a ton of jobs, interviewed a ton, and realized that there wasn't enough alignment in those roles for me. So I decided to start my own business. And then now I'm kind of working as a founder doing this work, and I also take on consulting and contract work. So this arrow continues for me. I'm probably going to circle through the other paths as well. One thing I also wanted to highlight too, I think for those of you I think there's a range of people here, maybe some that are new to this idea of freelancer consulting and those that have maybe already tried it, or you're, like Justin said, you're doing a little bit, but it's not exactly what you want to be doing, or it's not like the perfect situation. So Just wanted to point out that freelancing is huge in the United States. Freelance, consulting, fractional work. And here's kind of some rough data. This is from 2019, but it's around 57 million Americans were freelancing. Freelance income amounted to over $1 trillion. And there in 2019, there were way more freelance opportunities opening up. And this is actually data that is from the Department of Labor that I found earlier this morning. And this is really interesting data from 2019 to 2025. You can see the kind of slow growth of 57 million freelancers to 72 million, and the projected is going to go up to 90 million freelancers in the United States in the next 3 years alone. So it's almost if we're looking at the future of work or we're looking at opportunities, I really see freelance and working for yourself or kind of consulting. I see it as a huge opportunity area for not only the climate space, but other sectors as well. And if you're ever interested in the sources, they're all listed in the bottom right corner as well. Now, of course, I think you're all here because you know that this matters, but I think I also want to call out the realities of the difficult job market. I've worked with so many talented people. I've heard so many heartbreaking stories of the realities of how competitive the job market is, how difficult it is after a layoff to kind of be seen or get, interviews and things like that. And it's really tough for talented people, for recent graduates, for early career, senior career level, across the board. We all know it's a difficult time right now. But that also shows me the reality that even with these organizations that have had all these layoffs, the work still needs to be done. So, one of two things are happening. The people that kept their jobs are getting really stressed, and there's even more workload on them, which means they're likely going to get burned out sooner or later. And what that also means is that companies still need help to execute the work. And what that opens up for everyone here is this possibility around flexible and project based work that you can deliver for companies that's technically cheaper. What I mean by cheaper is this idea that for you as a freelancer or as a contractor, they're likely not paying your health insurance, you're not getting 401k, you're not getting those full-time employee benefits. And there's a whole world in which you can also develop that for yourself as a small business owner. But in the interim, you can actually charge a higher hourly rate, start developing income, build an income stream for yourself as you build out the rest of your business as well. And then, of course, consulting here is really a strategy. Consulting work or freelance work can lead you to full-time work or more consistent, hours with working with a specific company, or you can have multiple contracts as well. And I'm seeing some questions about platforms. Let me answer those really quick. So, in terms of, freelance platforms, right? I'm seeing Fiverr, Upwork. I'll actually talk about those in a second. It depends on the type of services that you're offering. I think Fiverr and Upwork are really big for digital skills. Graphic design, web development, branding, marketing, even like communications, writing, editing, that sort of thing. I think those platforms are really great for that. But let's say if you're actually maybe you're fractional C-suite level, chief marketing officer or something like that. Depending on the skill level that you have and the, tier of career level that you're in, you don't have to be on Fiverr or Upwork. There are other platforms as well. And Adam, thank you for calling that out. Leafer, the Now Work, and Dazzle, those are three platforms I'm going to talk about today. Those are all for sustainability consulting professionals. So it's similar to Fiverr and Upwork, but it's focused on sustainability and consulting. So I would recommend those. Leafer, the Now Work, and Dazzle, they're all great to be on. And they have a pretty simple application process so you can be part of their consulting team. And I have a few more that I'll talk about in a little bit as well. And of course, this whole consulting freelance, the benefit to you here is that you get flexibility in your working hours and you get to work on different types of projects. It can be an initial pathway into climate to then help you find more work. You also get to have a higher hourly rate. So what I mean by that is if you take your last six figure or your last full-time salary, no matter, you know, what that was, if you do the math, I think it's actually, I need to, what's the number? I think it's like 2080. It's like 2080 hours worked in a year. So correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I'll find the math on it. Yes, it's 2080. Okay, so it's you take that salary divided by 2080 and you get the number, and that's your hourly rate. But what I always recommend is add at least 30% on top of that, because you have to cover your own health insurance, you know, bills, other things like that. So that's what I mean by the higher hourly rate is, if you were to do that calculation for the full-time salary, it would look really high, but that's actually at your hourly rate. You also get to set your own schedule, which is a benefit. And I think for me, my journey in being a solopreneur or running my own business has allowed me to build work around the life that I want to live, as opposed to the other way. And absolutely, Corey, you're right. Bump it to maybe 50% because of the changes in health insurance, which I'm over here like, oh my God, I haven't even like started to figure that out. So yes, these are all good considerations when it comes to your hourly rate and kind of how to figure all of this out. So yeah, just kind of mentioning again, I think world changing work requires us to remain resilient. There's a lot of changes with healthcare, with rising costs of living. There's so many costs. Obviously, if you have a family, a mortgage, these are all things that you need to be able to take care of. And so I think that first and foremost, I want everyone here to take care of their hierarchy of needs. You have to keep a roof over your head. You have to take care of your family. You have to take care of yourself first. And I think from there, once your needs are taken care of, we can be creative with how we approach what work looks like, you know, how we make an impact in the world and things like that. So, um, that kind of takes me into this area of finding opportunities. So there's some really great discussion in the chat around, you know, where do you find these opportunities? How do you position yourself? And I wanted to kind of give everyone a little bit of like a just a snapshot of these terms that I'll be using throughout this workshop. So I know I've mentioned freelance, right? So a freelancer is what I would normally describe as someone that's open for short-term project-based work. And freelance projects can go from, they can be 1 month long all the way to a year plus. And they're mostly project based, and I'd say mostly hourly. Now, Fiverr, Upwork, those are really great places to list yourself as a freelancer. Now, fractional is kind of the other end of freelance. So fractional, I would say, is more, it leans senior level, and fractional folks are integrated team members that are working on a part-time basis, but for an extended period of time. So fractional contracts can go from 6 months to a year plus, and these again may look like fractional C-suite, chief marketing officer, chief operating officer, things like that. I have some more examples. Consultant can actually mean, you know, outside advisors that are providing project-based recommendations. You can join a team of consultants. Like, I think the similar thing is the big ones, Accenture, Deloitte, Booz Allen Hamilton. They keep benches of consultants that then are contracted out to their clients and things like that. So you can use that model on a much smaller basis as well. But again, a consultant is kind of outside advisor that provides short-term insights and kind of works on a project and then leaves. I also want to call out the difference between these two words. I used the word solopreneur earlier. For the first 2 years of my business, I was calling myself an entrepreneur, but it didn't quite sit right because I was like, well, my goal isn't to like scale my company and sell it. I'm not trying to have 10 employees. I just want to work by myself and you know, find a good cadence with work and life balance and all those things. And then I recently, in the last year, discovered the word solopreneur, which is kind of a blanket term to cover anyone that runs their own business by themselves. Now, that doesn't mean you can't work with other people. I actually work with other people. I partner with organizations all the time, but I am running my business by myself. So solopreneur, once I learned that word, it opened up a lot more opportunity for me to understand, okay, I'm not trying to scale and sell my company, so what else can I do to build and, come and things like that. So that word solopreneur was very helpful for me. So, what does this work look like? I wanted to actually give you some examples of what freelance job titles can look like. And this is a cool list of the 15 highest paying freelance jobs. It's a very broad range. You can see copywriter, virtual assistant, accountant, and then you see the technical side, videographer, programmer, data analyst, digital marketing consultant, um, web designer, things like that. So all of these roles can be done within climate. I was at New York Climate Week recently, and I was speaking with an accountant who was like, "Yeah, I'm in the accounting space, and I don't really like it, but I want to work in climate." And I think my initial like off the cuff advice for her was, have you ever considered doing accounting for like climate startups or for climate solopreneurs or something like that? So I really want to hope today that we can really kind of illustrate, no matter what industry you're coming from, there's always a way that you can intersect it with climate or social impact work in general. Some also examples of what I mean by fractional versus consulting. So, fractional C suite, chief operating officer, marketing officer, chief financial officer, CFO. I've seen those be helpful. I've also seen fractional leaders kind of move into like the startup advising space or even talent advising, just helping a company fill open roles like on a short term basis or something like that versus consulting work. These are things that I'm seeing more in like the ESG or like corporate consulting space. I've seen ESG consultant, business strategy consultant. You can be a marketing consultant and also grant writing. I think that's a big one right now, especially as nonprofits have waves of when they need to apply for grant funding and losing grant funding recently. But yeah, that's just kind of a demonstration of the different titles that you might see. And also, I'm seeing a shout out to IMA Collective. I am the biggest fan of IMA Collective. It's one of the best resources for solopreneurs. So, the link, Corey, thanks for dropping that in the chat. I'll talk about that a bit later. But I know I'm talking a lot right now. We'll take a break in a second to kind of digest some of this. But there are a lot of resources and there's a lot of communities and people that can help you get started. So, I know the solopreneur thing, it feels like you're doing everything by yourself, but there are ecosystems to help you navigate this. So let's see. Yeah, so really quick, I just kind of wanted to demonstrate the process for finding freelance and fractional work. I actually have two slides on finding freelance work and finding fractional work. What I want to emphasize is that we're going to focus on the defining piece today. But I wanted to paint a picture of what that rest of that process looks like, as some of you might be thinking, okay, as I get started, how do I do the rest of this? So, something that I've seen be successful in my work and in the other freelancers that I work with, the key thing to get started before you get yourself on Upwork or one of those platforms, you have to start with defining the skills that you want to sell. And if selling doesn't sound good right now, or if that's kind of like a weird word to use, you can also just say, well, define the skills that you want to use on a daily basis as a freelancer. So once you first define those skills, you can then kind of create a package around your services. If you're a graphic designer, do you want to offer logo design as a package? Do you want to do full service branding as another package? Do you want to do marketing as another package? So you can package your services and your skills accordingly. And part of that is defining your pricing, hourly or project base, and then identifying potential clients. So that define part is what we're going to work on today. I have a worksheet. I have a worksheet that we're going to work on today. And then the next process after you kind of define all that is to actually build on that definition. Build your portfolio to kind of showcase, hey, this is the work that I can do. And portfolios can be online, they can be a PDF, they can be a website. There's flexibility in how that looks. You can also collect client testimonials, and these can also be recommendations from people that you've worked with in the past. So if you're going from full-time job into freelance, you can use past managers or past clients as that initial, testimonial to get you started. And make sure that you have your resume and your portfolio ready to go when people start reaching out or start approaching you for work as well. Now, the big thing, I could spend 90 minutes only talking about networking in the context of how to land freelance work. So we can spend more time on that later too. But a big part of when you branch into this area of freelancing and fractional work, it's necessary. I won't even call it a necessary evil because I think it's a good thing, but it's a necessary thing to become more comfortable with networking. A lot of people, I almost want to say like 70 to 80% of freelancers or solopreneurs land their first clients through networking. It's actually people that you know or people that you worked with before or your past, companies that you've worked with. Those are the people that you can approach first when you start doing this work. And I'm seeing some nodding here as well. Maybe if some of you have branched into this, I wonder if anyone wants to share, how they first landed their first client or something like that. Amanda, thank you for sharing. 90% of your work came from networking. So I love to see that. So I often see, that can be the first thing to get you started, but that can also sustain your business too for a little bit. So definitely get used to writing, short messages to send to people, but also become okay with having calls with people to actually say, hey, this is what I'm working on. Like, is your company or are there any challenges or anything that you're working on that you can work with? And Justin, thank you for sharing that. My sole client thus far is through a connection that I have known since high school. So your friends, your family, your community, for anyone here that's gone through Terra.do, Climate Base, Voice Academy, any of these climate upskilling programs too, you can find collaborators and clients in those ecosystems as well. Now, if you do all of these things, it can get you to the point of conversion where you can turn conversations into clients. That goes into the whole writing statements of work, contracts, and kind of starting to do the work as well. The only difference that I would say when it comes to freelance versus fractional is freelance, because it can be hourly or project based, you can almost get specific with how you pitch yourself around your portfolio, right? If you're a brand designer, you can have really strong examples of brands that you designed, and that can be the thing that generates more work, or your one brand client can lead you to your next one as well. That's similar for fractional and consulting work, but I think a really big thing for fractional consulting is that you're likely going to be wearing multiple hats in that role as well. So, as a brand designer, you're getting contracted, you're building a brand, you're working with the client, you're doing that one specific thing. But let's say, as a fractional chief, like operating officer, you're going to be doing lots of different things. You're going to be wearing lots of different hats and things like that. So, fractional and consulting work oftentimes puts you in a position where you have to be doing more than just one thing. And that's why it does start with defining your service and your offerings, but I think your service as a whole can actually be broader than what you offer as a freelancer. And I'll have some examples of what that means in a second. But part of defining your service is also defining your pricing. If you want to do retainer or project base, and I always say, if you're going to go the consulting or fractional route, I think the first thing you should do is identify people in your network that you can go to first once you've identified your offer. I would also say building building thought leadership is another incredible way of showcasing the work that you have done. So again, if you're a senior career level and you want to move into fractional or consulting, you have a whole career that you can speak to of work that you've done, outcomes that you've delivered, all that good stuff. And so I would say outfit your LinkedIn to speak to those fractional offerings, but don't be afraid to actually speak to the work that you've done, the problems you've solved. You can also do that as a freelancer. But I think it's even more lucrative as a fractional or consulting person. You can also build a small PDF portfolio that you can share out with people, and same thing, collect client testimonials. So again, this process, there's no hard and fast here. The two could have been combined, but I wanted to kind of call out the differences of maybe the levels of work and the type of work that you'll be doing here. Okay, so some questions. We had some questions about, where do you find the opportunities? So again, you'll get the slides so you can click through these, but the Now Work, Leafer, and Dazzle, those are 3 climate specific freelance and consulting websites that I'd recommend. Depending on your skill set, those would be great to like apply to, and you can join their community and they will kind of share out opportunities that come their way. Generalist World and the Patagonia, volunteer opportunities, those are places where jobs are posted pretty often. There's the whole other angle here around networking of even if a job isn't posted, or let's say a full-time job is posted somewhere and you're interested in the fractional route, you can always pitch yourself as a fractional consultant, even if they don't have it posted. That's where the networking really comes in, is like you can kind of, you can create opportunities for yourself. And then for the fractional job sites, there are a few more here. Actually, a big one that I would recommend, I can click on it and show you all what this looks like. This is, oh no, I have the real link somewhere else. I'll find it for you. But this is actually, it's a really big list of sustainability consulting organizations. So you can even kind of go through that list of sustainability consulting focused orgs and see if they not only have job openings, but see if they have people you can connect with to kind of find your way through there. Operators Guild here, this is, it's a place to be like enroll as a fractional C-suite person. I don't actually think that this is focused on climate, but you could work with climate or impact companies throughout this as well. So a lot of these have like membership. So you join as a member and then you can get access to their opportunities. The last thing that I'll say too is there are so many climate tech communities, newsletters, job boards. Those are all places where you can find interesting companies and then reach out to them directly to pitch your services. So truly what I mean by, making opportunities, you also have to be creative in how you kind of approach people, pitch yourself, and understand the different challenges that they have as well. Adam, I can share, and if anyone here has been on the Now Work, Leafer, or Dazzle, welcome you to share your experience. Adam, I can actually share with you, one of my clients just landed an opportunity with Dazzle. If you go to the Dazzle website, actually, it even says that it's Europe focused, but my client is in San Francisco, another client in San Francisco. So I think that they're also branching out into the US as well. But yeah, as you can see here, Dazzle is a platform that has pre-screened sustainability freelancers. So this is a platform that you can also get onto. And let's explore. I'm seeing some questions around what sorts of jobs are available there. Let's take a look. So the Now Work is another sustainability consulting platform. If you look at their services, I think they like talk through, let me see. I think the Now Work does ESG consulting and yeah, circularity and a few different things. So would definitely encourage you to look through the specifics around what sorts of jobs are there. Bria, I'm seeing your question. No, not all of these memberships cost money. It's more you apply, you submit your resume, and if you are a skilled candidate or you have skills that they are looking for, you can join as a member. Some communities, some of them have cost associated, but not all of them. Yeah, it looks like the Now Work doesn't. Okay, great. Yeah, lastly, I think, I oftentimes see this question around AI also of like, how do I use it in my job search? Should I be using it as a consultant? Just things like that. So I wanted to very lightly touch on this topic as well around how, AI is right now, it's just another tool in the landscape of careers and resources and tools that are used by job seekers and by recruiters and people screening resumes. I will say that you can use AI and ChatGPT to help you save time. For example, even with what I'm talking about today, I can share a ChatGPT prompt to help you all think through, well, what are my first offers that I want to define? What are the skills that I feel most aligned to offer as a package or something like that? These tools can help you get started. If you want to, get help writing a proposal, brainstorm ideas, these tools can be helpful. But my biggest thing is never to offload decision making or execution to these tools. I think that's where it gets scary. There's people that are doing that and we're like losing brain cells in the process. There's a study done on that. So make sure that you're using these tools wisely. Be mindful also of we're still studying the environmental impact of ChatGPT, of AI, how much water usage and energy usage there is. So there's lots of things to be mindful about when you're using AI, but it is a tool right now that I think is very commonly used to help people at least get started in this process. So I'm gonna go through these 3 inspirational stories really quick, and then I'll just pause for questions, and then we can kind of move into the working session of this workshop. So I have 3 people. These folks are all in my network. You can connect with all of them on LinkedIn. They're all phenomenal leaders in the climate space, but I'm also highlighting them because I've worked with them in some capacity or learned from them in some way, and I find their work very inspirational. So Drew Wilkinson is actually this incredible person. Oh, nice. You just went to a talk with Drew. I love that. So Drew's an incredible person because he actually used to work at Microsoft and he was worried that Microsoft was not doing enough around climate change mitigation. So he built a coalition of 10,000 Microsoft employees to make Microsoft change their climate initiatives from the inside. And it was such incredible work. And I think um, a big part of his story too is now he's actually taken all that work that he did within Microsoft and he's built a consulting practice now to also work on employee engagement. So he's helping other employees at large organizations work on climate initiatives from within those organizations. Now, it's worth noting Drew did this incredible work at Microsoft. This amazing article was written about him. A lot of his work picked up. And then he was actually affected by a massive layoff at Microsoft. So I share this story because I'm like, it's so empowering to see that he was doing this incredible work. He faced a layoff and then he was able to build a consulting practice out of the work that he did there as well. So that's just one kind of pathway of he took the work that he did and then he changed it into consulting practice even after experiencing a layoff. Lily here is based in Italy, and Lily is actually the founder of Ima Collective. Lily, before she went out onto her solopreneur journey, she was an experienced designer and a facilitator and a service designer working with mostly technology people. And she actually built her solopreneur journey in multiple phases. I think she first went out as a freelance designer and then she started working as a part-time like consultant, giving talks and facilitating meetings and events and things like that. And in the last few years, she actually built Ima Collective, which is a online community specifically for impact-focused solopreneurs. I'll be completely transparent. I am part of Ima. I joined it this year and it has revolutionized my work and my ability to connect with people and learn from people as a solopreneur. So I've really loved her community and she actually helps people get started in their business, and then also for those that are further along, she helps them kind of navigate the ins and outs of how you refine your services and things like that. And lastly, what I'll mention is Ben here. Ben and I actually went through the Terra.do program together. We did that in 2022. And Ben has a background in digital operations and people management. He had recently graduated with an MBA and he completed the Terra.do program to kind of pivot more into climate. He actually landed a climate job after the Terra program and then shortly after decided to launch his fractional practice as a chief of staff. And he's been doing that for maybe close to maybe a year or two now. And I wanted to share a picture of his LinkedIn because this is what we're going to kind of talk a little bit more about in the next phase of this workshop is actually getting crystal clear on the problems that you want to solve for other people. And Ben's, you can see his LinkedIn headline, getting climate tech CEOs at least 20 hours back every week. That is the problem that he solves as a fractional chief of staff. And that's kind of one way to talk about yourself as well. So each of these folks, they've had different, career pathways, different ways of working, and they each run a different business. Not every business model is the same. And I know today we talked about freelance consulting and fractional, but even within each of those, you can design the business model to work best for yourself. So the next part of this is kind of the working session. I have a worksheet that I'll share with everyone, but I know I talked for a little bit long, so I just want to pause and see, does anybody have any immediate questions? Anything that's top of mind that I've talked about so far, and then I can share the worksheet in a second. Feel free to unmute if you have any immediate questions.
Hi. So my question was about the freelance websites that you mentioned, and the process where you submit your resume, your profile, and then they put you on. In your experience, is there like a lot of tailoring that you've advised people to do to be, I don't know, like get their kind of background to fit as more suitable to what people are looking for, or any guidance there?
Yeah, I think that I think it's honestly trial and error with those websites. It's different. You're not just applying to a single job, you're actually applying to be part of a pool of people.
Right.
So that's kind of the thing where I'm like, I don't think that you have to, like, it's always good to be specific when you're applying to one type of job, but if you're applying to be part of a larger group of people, I would say speak to the different skills that you have, speak to maybe the different like buckets of skills. If you can even create like program management, operations, people leadership,
Mhm.
like if you can create ways for people to easily understand the specific skills you have, it's okay if they're in different buckets, but um, I'd say be open to kind of telling your story around the different skills that you have and where you see yourself fitting in within that ecosystem. If it's the now work or if it's any of the other ones, definitely look at like what are the roles that they're looking for or the skills they're looking for and market yourself accordingly.
Sounds like a long resume.
It
Like with maybe
depends.
more on
Yeah.
the front, like the blurb at the front, because I think one of my, not to make this all about my resume, but it's just very technical and very in-group lingo.
Hmm.
So there's like a lot of translation to get it to make sense to anyone outside of my
Yeah.
second.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. Also welcome anyone here. If you have feedback or thoughts, you're welcome to share as well. Stacy, go ahead.
Yes. I saw that someone asked about conversion and like people are asking about like the efficacy of Upwork and stuff like that. And I do like you're saying you need your LinkedIn, your knowledge base, your blog, kind of showcasing your skills. I find that I tend to get the most traction when I'm like talk to people and meet them, but it's been taking me I don't have a good formula yet, but it's taking me a while to like refine how do I approach conversations and relationships so that they do convert to work and I don't just rely on my own online presence. So any thoughts on like sales, which you mentioned, like how, approaching sales, being a better salesperson, like, talking to people, converting in your network, you can't really just go to someone and be like, hey, I'm looking for climate work, even if they are your friend or family member, like, yeah, just how do you position yourself in person, in conversations, kind of trying to use those relationships you already have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we have some, and Stacey, I'm like, I could have had a slide here about your success stories too, of how you've been building out your fractional practice as well. Amanda, I might call you out here too as another, small business owner in the creative space. If anybody here is already on the pathway, you're more than welcome to share your experience here too. What I'll quickly say to kind of answer that question of how do you lead to conversion, or how do you really ultimately get sales, or find clients that will pay you. um, I think that there's many ways to do it. Again, there's no one and done for this, but something that I hear quite often and that I've learned through the people that I've worked with too is that sales is actually about education. In order to make a sale, in order to get someone to hire you, you actually oftentimes have to do a lot of the work around educating your potential clients or your customers around what the challenges are and what the impact of those challenges are on their business. So a simple thing, again, I can go back to Ben's LinkedIn, right? He is a fractional chief of staff, and through his work, he gives CEOs and founders 20 hours back. Now, if you went to any startup founder and you said, "Hey, do you want to have 20 hours back on your calendar?" They would say yes, because they're always short on time. But the back end of that, what the sales of that actually looks like is, I'm in Ben, or even folks like myself, we're oftentimes talking to people around, hey, like, what are you working on? But what's a blocker for you? What's holding you back? What's stopping you? What's your big goal, and what's stopping you from being able to accomplish that? Those sorts of questions that you have in your networking calls, that can help you. You can even say, oh, well, have you tried this, or have you considered this? You can workshop with them potential ideas, but then also position yourself as the problem solver, as the person that can deliver the outcome that will help them with that problem. We can, like, that looks a lot of different ways. If you are, honestly, Amanda, is it okay if I call on you? I almost want to be like,
Literally,
tell us
like,
how
raise
you've
my
done
hand.
it from like the creative perspective.
It's funny because I was like literally about to raise my hand and be like, I have something to add.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I've learned, I've done it wrong like a million times. So let me just first and foremost make that known. I think the most important thing is like seeing the humanity in the other person and understanding like everybody is we're just all trying to survive. And how I think the most effective thing is like starting with listening and understanding what is the problem that they have, and then kind of trying to figure out within your wheelhouse like how you can solve it. Another thing that recently has become really apparent to me, and I did it wrong for the first 2 years of owning my business, is the power of connection to other people and the support of your community. I was part of this group called Doxa a very, very long time ago, and it was based on the idea of a net, like that we are all a net that is like supporting each other. And as one person falls, the other like strings tighten to pull them up. And I can imagine that being really powerful in a space like this because the more people you know and that know what you do, the better, like the more you'll get referred and things like that. But one of the challenges that at least I came across was that nobody knew how to sell me that when I wasn't in the room. And so making that really easy, which I think Ben's LinkedIn probably does a really good job of doing, is like simplifying your pitch to something that someone can say offhand. Um, so that people that do want to support you can support you really well. And then giving them tools like a good website or a good LinkedIn or a good something that allows for people to kind of close the deal. So those are just thoughts off the top of my head.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm seeing some really great, resources and things like that in the chat as well. And I'm also seeing a big question around, do I register an LLC, or how formal do I have to be in this process too? So I even want to address that too. It's like we're thinking about, how do I make sales? How do I get people to, pay me for my work? And what I do want to emphasize, and you know what, I'm actually just going to drop this in the chat right now so everybody has it. But the number one recommendation that I have for everyone is, if you're getting started and you have these are like the basic questions around, how do I get started? How do I do this? we can go through the worksheet today to figure out, all right, what are your perfect, what's your pitch? What are the services? But the basic questions around, do I form an LLC? How do I write a contract so I can ensure I get paid? Basic things like that, I would say go to score.org, score.org. I just dropped it in the chat. And SCORE is part of the Small Business Administration, SBA. It's a nationwide free resource to starting your own business. 100% free. It's someone recommended it to me when I first started, and what I'll say is that I think they're a little bit traditional. They give you the traditional, like, here's your business model, write out the work, complete this worksheet, figure it out. But you can get matched with a mentor for free, and you can get matched with a tax advisor for free. You can get matched with a bookkeeper for free, at least for those initial advisory calls. That person isn't going to do your bookkeeping for free, but they can give you ideas on how to get started. So this question around, do I start an LLC? Do I do S corp? How do I make sure I actually get paid? Contracts, the very beginning parts of those processes. SCORE is a phenomenal resource. So again, I dropped it in the chat. Nationwide free resource. Every single state has a small business administration as well. So if you're in California, I feel like the Small Business Administration in California must be popping because so many businesses come out of California. And that's another thing though that I'll mention is, if you are going to incorporate or get an LLC, you can incorporate in Delaware. People do that all the time because their incorporation fees are very low. So we're getting into the weeds now, but if you're going to register a business, do not register in California because it's too expensive. And it's totally legal and totally okay to register in Delaware, even if you don't live there. Like, your SCORE mentor will help you do that. So totally fine. And yeah, just like wanted to quickly address that. And Justin, yeah, that's great. Sounds like your local SBA helped you write a business plan, that helped you get a grant, which is awesome. I used to do that as well. And Lori, you were a SCORE mentor. That's awesome. We have a legend amongst us. That's awesome. So yeah, SCORE is a phenomenal resource. And I know I also saw some conversation around, okay, well, what is also healthcare, right? Like, how do you find healthcare as a small business owner, as a solopreneur? I also want to share the Freelancers Union is a union for freelancers. It's a nonprofit, and they actually offer all sorts of resources for freelancers, solopreneurs, that help you find healthcare, help you manage contracts. They offer some one-on-one support as well. So Freelancers Union and SCORE for small business mentoring. Those are like my top two. If you're walking away from this and you're like, I need help with something, I think those are two. And then my third one is Ima Collective, the one that we've talked about. That's also phenomenal community to join. They have a free newsletter. They're sending out amazing resources too. So yeah, those are my top three resources. So I want to make sure we've got about 30 minutes left. I want to make sure that we have at least some time to get into the weeds of what you would like to create for yourself and for this business. So my last note before I'll share this slide again, the last thing that I'll mention about the whole LLC, S Corp, incorporation thing, you do not have to be incorporated in order to start freelancing or start fractional work. It's a safety net, especially if you're going to do this long term or you want to start having larger contracts. But just to get started, just to see if this is even something you want to do, you do not have to register as an LLC. What I'll mention in terms of tax implication is that when you're a single member LLC, that's what I am, you get taxed the same as if you were just sole proprietor. And sole proprietor, you actually don't need to register anything. If you just start freelancing, you're a sole proprietor, and then if you register your LLC, you'll be single member LLC. So you can even speak with your SCORE mentor about, I don't know if I want to register just yet, and they'll walk you through that as well. So there's help for all these like technical details. So for today, we are going to be working on this worksheet. I just dropped it in the chat. And you can go ahead and click on that, and it should automatically make a copy for you. Let me know if you're having any issues with that. But the purpose of this worksheet, and also there's a QR code right there if anybody wants to scan it. But what we're going to do now is actually work on this exercise to help you get started with the activities around how do you, build your initial freelance or fractional practice. So I'll just share it here so you can see it. So this worksheet takes you through a variety of exercises. We're actually only going to focus on maybe the first 3 today. So the first part of this whole journey, as I mentioned at the beginning, is define, right? Define your niche, define the skills that you have, things like that. So I'll say let's maybe spend like 5-10 minutes on each section, but the first part is clarifying your niche, and some questions to help you think through that are, what skills of mine do I feel strongest in? And I like this question. If someone asked you to deliver a project tomorrow and you knew you could knock it out of the park, what would you do? Like, which of your skills would you be like, okay, that I can do tomorrow. I could do that super well. So think through that. And then the second question is, what are industries and spaces I know best? That can be within climate, places you want to work in. Maybe it's international aid, maybe it's something else. And then what sorts of problems do I really enjoy solving? After that, we'll move into kind of defining your services. What sorts of services could you offer to tackle the sorts of problems that you mentioned up here? And it's kind of an example here. Sustainability strategy can be broken into carbon reporting, stakeholder engagement. Storytelling can actually mean brand strategy, copywriting. We can kind of break that down. So you can write your ideas out here. And then, of course, that question, what transformation can I help others achieve? So that's that example from Ben again of, I help founders save 20 hours a week. What's your version of that? Think through that. I honestly think we'll probably only have time to get through maybe 1 or 2 of these. So everyone, this is your worksheet to keep. You can work on it after this, but afterwards, it's helpful to define the types of clients you want to work with. There's some questions there. There's also pricing. There's an exercise to help you on that. And then lastly, designing your proof of value, or what you want to put on your LinkedIn or your portfolio. So this worksheet, once you click that button, it'll generate a copy for you and it's yours. You get to work on it for however long you'd like. And it's the whole purpose of today, I think, is to help you get this initial idea of, how do I define the services that I want to have? So let's jump in. I think I'm gonna give everyone like 10 minutes to start at this. And also, you do not need to finish it today. You don't have to have everything perfect. And if any of these questions are hard for you, just let me know. We can kind of work through that today too. So feel free to click on that link, make a copy, and let's spend 10 minutes actually going through and kind of clarifying the niche to start. And if you get through that, feel free to move on to part 2 of defining your services. Anybody have any questions about that? Cool. Awesome. Well, looks like people are finding it useful already. So I'll be here. I might play a little bit of music for us, but if anybody gets stuck, let me know. We can work on it together.
I'll help you moderate it.
Sounds good, Amanda. All right, everybody. We've got about 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure we have some time for a share out. Do we have any courageous souls in the audience that would be willing to share a little bit of what you put together? And of course, if you need to run, no worries at all. But I invite anybody here to share a little bit of what you put together in the first bit, clarifying your niche, what skills you feel strongest in, industries, and what types of problems you enjoy solving. Feel free to share out here. You can connect with anyone who's similar or get feedback if you'd like. And if you did get to defining your services and you want to share that too, you're more than welcome to. Anybody want to share? Apurva, go ahead. Thank you for raising your hand.
Sure, I'll start sharing my screen.
Yes, here you should be able to.
So I'm in a different field than what we see conventionally in the consultancy space, like ESG and all. So I'm not in that. I'm currently working as a planner, and most of my work has been with the local government. So I would be curious for all of your thoughts on how I can position myself as an independent consultant in the climate space. So, starting with the first question, what skills of mine?
Sorry, are you sharing your screen? I'm not able to see it.
Oh, sorry, I'll just start it again. It says starting share screen will stop others' computer sound share.
Say yes. You can say yes for that.
Okay.
Perfect.
Can
Thank
you
you.
all see
We
my?
can see it now. Looks good.
Awesome. So what skills of mine do I feel strongest in? I would say currently climate adaptation planning and policy analysis, which is I'm currently doing, and clean energy research, which is something I did in my capstone project at school. And then geospatial analysis, like I like to create maps on ArcGIS. So these three niche I feel I can work in. And what are the industries and spaces I know best? So I'd say resiliency planning, and then sustainable built environment, clean energy transition, and environmental justice. They all have certain overlap, but this is something I've done like small projects in. And what type of problems do I love solving the most? So I like conceptualizing and defining climate solutions for our cities and communities that are equitable, data-driven, and centered in environmental justice. So it kind of leads me to more towards the nonprofit and local government work. I can stop there.
Very
Or
cool. Were you able to get to your services?
Yes, I did define some parts of that.
Very cool. What did you come up with?
So what specific services could I offer to solve the problems listed above? I thought of climate adaptation planning, which is creating solutions and strategies. It also involves a lot of stakeholder coordination, collaboration, and then the GIS mapping for the data-driven part of it. And then clean energy research, where I could provide insights on clean energy siting, and then starting with community-led planning efforts. Like I've done my capstone in community solar. So like the local energy projects and how they could be implemented. And what transformation can I help others achieve? I mean, if someone introduced me on LinkedIn tomorrow, I'd probably want them to say that I'm detail oriented. I can do geospatial analysis and maybe knowledgeable about what I'm doing.
Amazing. I love this. Apurva, thank you so much for sharing. This is awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yes, claps all around. Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else want to go next?
I'm happy to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. All right. Is that one coming up?
Yes, can see it.
Right. So, I've been in financial reporting, but for the last year, I've been helping out a friend with a small business. So I've added in the chief of staff because I found I could hire his whole team, um, in like a small business environment, even though I've mostly been in institutional settings. So in terms of industries and spaces I know best, it would be financial services. And I'm targeting, um, large scale infrastructure finance, specifically around renewable energy. But I also have a strong background in treasury operations and just operating in regulated environments. Um, and in terms of the type of problems that I focus on is a lot of like transformation type projects in institutional settings, especially in like a regulatory setting, like implementation of new regulation, also hiring a team. Could stop there or keep going.
Very cool. Yeah, if you got to the second part,
Okay.
feel free to share.
Sure. So here, I had one bullet for my experience in a small business now in terms of recruiting a team, defining a role and a narrative for the company and the expectations management, and then thinking of my kind of professional core skill set, financial close, forecasting and reporting, risk management, cash management, funding, that sort of thing. And in terms of an introduction, I think I'd want to focus on execution, that I get things done and I'm easy to work with, and that I'm a well-rounded finance professional.
Awesome. Gianna, thank you so much for sharing. I love that. She gets things done. That could be your like LinkedIn headline. I love that. Thank you for sharing. I know we're getting to the end. I'd love to see maybe one more person. Anybody else feel like sharing? Corey, go ahead.
So I'll give you a little bit maybe of a curveball too at the end, but
Sounds
so
good.
the worksheet was helpful for me. I'll go ahead and I'll share my screen, but what I'm going to share is actually the site that I've set up for my fractional and advisory services already. But the reason why I would rather actually share with the group this versus the worksheet is I think the worksheet allowed me to come back and see how I've presented myself over the last, 9 months or so since I did the first cut of this and ask myself some of the questions that are on the worksheet to say like, is there a better way of being able to speak to what I think some of my strengths or the areas of interest are? I've got, kind of like the framing here, and then I have like how I can help underneath, each of these. And then I go into details of what each of those core capabilities are and everything. But I think I need to kind of go back and say, is this what the organizations that I want to be working with are actually looking for, or am I actually solving for some of the problems that they have? Or is there a better way for me to tell stories about some of the projects that I've completed, in the past, right? So that's the value that I got out of the worksheet and the discussion around it.
Awesome. This is very cool. Thank you so much for sharing. Love to see it. Awesome. Okay, well, I know we're at time. It's 7:30 p.m. Eastern, so looks like some folks are having to hop. So I'll just I'll wrap up for today, and again, I'll drop these links in the chat. But really quick, what I do want to share is at the end of this slide deck that everyone will, get access to. I did really quick want to share that there are a ton of resources at the end. So, of course, ways to stay in touch with me, some info there. But all those links that I had shared, SCORE, Small Business Mentoring, IMA Collective, Freelancers Union, they're all in here. So if you lost those links, just know that they're here. I also have quite a few resources on people to follow on LinkedIn that talk about freelancing or fractional work, other communities and Slack channels to join where you can find freelance or fractional work, and get involved that way, as well as job boards to find climate work as well. So all of that's here. And I actually had a whole section on thought leadership that I was like, we're not going to have time for it today. So there's some more info. If you're interested in building thought leadership on LinkedIn or other places, there's more slides in there. So just want everyone to know that the slides over there are action packed and resource packed. And I love to end on this note of, I really think the work that each one of you is doing is contributing to building a better and different world, more just world, more, safer world. And I really believe that we're at this crossroads of, what comes next. And I think we're all part of reimagining what the world looks like, what work looks like, and how we can work together as well. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you for spending your evening with me. Um, and you'll receive, follow-up info shortly after this. And I'll just make one quick request. There's going to be a chance to leave feedback in the email that I send out after this. I would so appreciate if you could take 10 seconds to let me know what you thought of this session. A quick write-up or quick note of feedback is always very helpful for me. So I'm seeing the thank yous coming in here. So also thank you so much. Again, thank you. Big, big thank you to Stacy for having me here, and thank you for organizing this event, and thank you everyone for coming. Let's stay in touch. You'll hear from me, but I encourage everyone here to stay in touch with each other as well. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.